Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We couldn't do these without the incredible support of our sponsors, and we want to take a moment to say thank you to all of them. First, thanks to our diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to thank our platinum sponsors, including Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level. Gipper, sports graphics made incredibly simple. Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. And Camp Mobile, where leaders communicate better. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is David Marlow. David is a certified Master Athletic Administrator. He's the Director of Athletics at Mount Mansfield Union High School in Jericho, Vermont. He's also very active at the state level. He's currently the Professional Development Coordinator and the Conference Coordinator for the Vermont Athletic Directors Association. David, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jake. Glad to be on.
Yeah, we're excited to hear what's going on up in your neck of the woods. So let's get started. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school, and maybe how your love of athletics led to your current position.
Yeah, so I grew up about 10 minutes from the Canadian border in northern Vermont, so north. And I guess I grew up in a family that are all educators. My dad's been an athletic director actually for 35 plus years in Vermont at two different schools. And as my wife found out when we were going through my childhood memory box that my mom kept and gave us, back in second grade, I had said I wanted to be an athletic director when I grew up. So it's something that I kind of had in my blood and kind of knew I wanted to do from an early age. I went to high school, three-sport athlete, 3.9 GPA student, really tried to focus on the academic piece, got into a bunch of different colleges, really liked St. Michael's College, which is a liberal arts school right here in Vermont, Division II, played on the soccer team there for 2 years, and then decided I had to focus on my academics more than the athletic piece because I wasn't going to make it as a professional soccer player. So leaving college, I had an elementary education background with a history double major, and actually was a kindergarten teacher for the first 6 years. Absolutely loved it. Had a great time being able to mold young minds and have everyone be so enthusiastic about school and coming in every day. And being a male kindergarten teacher, I was one of two males in the entire elementary school building. So the influence I was able to have on these kids over the course of 6 years is pretty cool. Also served as an assistant principal there for the last 2 years. So it was kind of a double role. It was a small school, one class per grade. K through 8. So, two hallways, primary on one end, middle school on the other side, with a gym / cafeteria connecting the middle. Then this job at Mount Mansfield opened up 9 years ago, and I applied and received the job, and it's kind of been full throttle ever since.
I always love to hear the stories and the journey of each individual AD. That's not a common position, kindergarten instructor and principal of the school. That must have been interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. It was more, as an assistant principal at a K through 8 school, you're dealing more with the discipline piece than anything else. And then if the principal is not there, then you're the one that they kind of come to. But the kindergarten position, I think, helped make me the educator I am today in terms of being able to effectively communicate and be organized. If you're walking into a class of 25-year-olds and you're not communicating correctly or not organized, and it's going to be a long day.
Oh, no, absolutely. You can't walk into those lower grade levels and say, all right, kids, read chapter 12 and I'll get back to you in 30 minutes. That's not going to work. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. You can only have nap time for so long.
Now, a long time ago on my journey, I actually spent a year in Vermont. I was the offense coordinator and head track coach at Norwich University back in the 90s. So I'm familiar with a little bit of Vermont's geography. Whereabout is Mount Mansfield compared to Northfield, Vermont?
It's northeast of Northfield. It's about maybe an hour to hour and 15 minutes northeast of Northfield. We are tucked in between, we're about 15 miles east of Burlington, which would be our largest city. Okay. In between Bolton Valley Ski Resort and Smuggler's Notch Ski Resort. We always like to say that, we end up getting more snow than anyone else, and our fields usually aren't dried out until the end, April break, the end of April. So we tend to get a lot.
I remember the year that we were there, the first snow was like October 10th. And then the last snow, about 6 inches, was on May 12th, the day I got back from the national D3 track meet. So yeah, a lot of snow up there. Okay.
Yes.
David, in our profession, we always talk about the importance of mentorship and leadership. And I'd like to know, who were some of your mentors, growing up? I'm going to guess, probably your dad as an AD, certainly on that list. But who are some of the people whose voices you still hear in your head when you're talking with a coach or maybe a kid?
Yeah, I would definitely say my biggest mentor is my dad. I went to the same high school. He was an AD, and he actually was my varsity soccer coach as well at the time. I pretty much any type of lesson I've learned through him or by him, both good and bad. And the other big influence I have is actually my cousin, who lives in Tallahassee, or now in Orlando, but was in Tallahassee for a while. Also a Florida State alum. I know, Jake, you're, I believe, a Florida State fan, and as am I for football at least. And he's influenced me. He's like an older brother to me. He's 6 years older than I am. I have 3 brothers, and I'm the oldest of 3. So I didn't have an older brother, and he kind of took me under his wing as my older brother. And he's a very successful financial advisor down in Florida, and he helps with the leadership department for his company. And so he and I chat on a pretty regular basis, talking different, leadership things and videos or quotes or something that we see that can motivate each other. And I would say besides my dad, he would be my biggest influence and mentor that I have and look up to. And as you know, there's obviously mentors around the country now through the NIAAA that I've had the fortunate opportunity to meet through my roles within the association, and Doug Kilgore comes to mind. I brought Doug up to Vermont. He had never tasted real maple syrup before. And by real maple syrup, we mean Vermont maple syrup. And, and so we gave him some real maple syrup to try for the first time, and with his pancakes during breakfast. And, he's been a good mentor for me in my role as a state coordinator, in just trying to help me out with different things. Rich Barton from Utah is another one that I've been able to kind of try to model my professional development around. So I think, we're lucky in the position that we are, that we get to serve as a mentor for many of our athletes throughout the state that we work in. But it's also nice to have those mentors around the country that we can rely on and kind of call on when we need someone to talk to.
Oh, without question, the networking that is available through NIAAA is just fantastic. And, I actually currently have the privilege of working with both Rich and Doug on a new LTI course, partnering with parents. So, a couple of really great guys. You talk about professional development. Let's go down that path. We have a lot of younger athletic directors that listen to the show. And I think it's important to talk about the journey with LTI and certification. So just talk a little bit about how you got involved with your state association, leading to your CAA, and then tell us about your CMAA project. You still there?
Yeah. So I came in obviously with quite a few of my dad's friends as ADs throughout the state. So I had a lot of mentors that I could talk to within the state of Vermont. And like every state, we had a high turnover for a while, and a lot of those older ADs retired and new ones stepped in. So there were roles and opportunities that I had an opportunity to kind of take over. And the one thing that I took over that I was passionate about was our state conference coordinator position. Because I feel like that's the best piece of PD work that we have in the state of Vermont. We offer 5 courses, 5 LTI classes. We bring in presenters from around the country. It's a 3-day event that is small enough that we get to hang out and see each other, but it's also large enough where we get to learn a lot more to bring back to our schools and within our state. So I've always been kind of goal oriented from an early age. And so my goal was when I took this position at Mount Mansfield was to become a CAA as quickly as I could, which obviously was a 2-year waiting period and so forth like that. But I took all the courses I needed to do. I did all the work that was entailed in that. Took the CAA exam at the national conference in Orlando. And I remember getting my certificate in the mail or plaque in the mail on Christmas Eve. And was absolutely thrilled because I had no idea if I had passed or not. Now with the computer test, it makes it a little easier. So in terms of CMAA, that was my next goal. And that was my ultimate goal, selfishly, because that's what my dad was. And I knew how important it was to the association. And getting into the state coordinator position, I also knew there was only 7 or 8 ADs in the state of Vermont at the time that had a CMAA. And for me, I felt like that could be a way I can start to distinguish who I am and what my values and my beliefs are within Mount Mansfield and within the state. So I did my project on the changes and goals I have surrounding our state conference and how we've raised the attendance every year, how we're able to bring in more national speakers and nationally recognized groups and organizations to come and talk to our association, and how we've grown from offering 2 or 3 classes to now offering 5 to 6 on a regular basis every year for an association that only has roughly 70 ADs in it. Being able to offer that number of courses spread out amongst 2 days is valuable for some of those ADs who aren't able to make it to the nationals or to take a spring webinar because of other responsibilities.
Well, absolutely. And again, congratulations on developing and expanding on that program. For our listeners, we're recording this on March 16th. And, Florida has its annual state conference coming up April 30 through March 3rd. So maybe if you want to escape those snow flurries up there, come on down to Orlando again. And, we'll see if we can get you to teach a class or something.
That would be nice. Actually, our conference is the 28th to the 30th.
Oh, okay.
So ours is coming up. We're doing ours virtually, though, because our gathering size is still, for the state requirement, is still low. So we're not unable to meet in person yet.
No, well, I'm sure you're still going to have a great conference, great experience. David, one of the things we like to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So, you've been at Mount Mansfield for several years now, done an outstanding job. What are some initiatives, they could have been there before and you've enhanced them, or maybe they're ones that you started. What are some things that your coaches do, that your program does, that when you look at it, you can say with equal parts pride and humility, boy, we do this better than anybody else? What are some best practices that you can share with us?
So a couple of years ago, Dabo Sweeney had a saying that he used with Clemson football, which kills me at being a Florida State fan, but best is the standard. And John Gordon talks a lot about that in some of his literature. I took best as the standard and kind of made it into MMU philosophy, athletic philosophy, meaning belief, enthusiasm, and excellence, service to others, and toughness. And that could be mental or physical toughness. And and our coaches instill those core values in their athletes throughout the season to continue with the education-based athletics. Wins and losses are great, but at the end of the day, we want our student athletes to have a positive athletic experience within the community, and to serve as role models for those younger athletes throughout the 5 towns that we serve. So that's been one initiative that we've kind of taken under our wing. And every level team, no matter if it's a freshman, JV or varsity, gives out a best as a standard T-shirt at the end of every season to their student athlete who isn't necessarily the best athlete, but it's the athlete that best represents those core values of the athletic department. The other thing that is really special and unique at MMU, and I'm completely biased about this, but it's the sense of community and enthusiasm within the community for our athletic programs. Before this year, where there's no spectators at any winter event that we have, it would not be uncommon to come in on a Wednesday night or a Friday night and see 300 students in the gym, packing the gym to support their boys or girls basketball team. And as a school size of about 750, 300 students, that's almost half the population. It's a great student turnout. The signs that we get throughout the town wishing teams good luck when they make it to the state championship game, or if they're going to the state semifinal game. It's that whole sense of community and enthusiasm that makes Cougar Nation what we are and how we're special. The other big initiative that we started when I first got here was, I'm a big swag guy. I love getting our brand out, hats, T-shirts, scarves, whatever.
Yep.
Because I think the more you get your brand out, the more your logo then is seen throughout the community, and it's something that kids aspire to wear or aspire to be like. So it's youth. It starts. I have 3 younger boys. My wife and I just had our third 3 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. But my 6-year-old and my 4-year-old, they have more Cougar gear than I think anyone ever would imagine. And and in doing that, we then are able to get gear and swag out to kids at camps or at within schools for different experiences that we are able to provide for them, and it allows them to feel part of what we do up here at the high school. Our winter athletes or our winter fans, we do a fan shirt for our students during winter events. And what that shirt does, it's a one-time fee. You get a white T-shirt, and you wear that shirt to the games, and you get into every game for free throughout the winter. And so when you get it's a different shirt every year with a different logo. Last year, our theme was "You Are Loved," and it was around mental health. And we're pushing mental health hard within our athletes. We have a mental health awareness club in the high school that's been around for about 3 years now. We do mental health awareness games every season with each individual sport to show the importance of mental health within our athletes and within our community, as well as the importance of not being afraid to stand up and speak about your mental health. And I think that's huge in today's society in particular. The one kind of silver lining in this whole COVID era has been the amount of mental health awareness within our students in general, while being remote or hybrid learning or not being able to have seasons canceled and not being able to play. The mental health of our athletes and our students and within our buildings, I think, is vital. As I said to someone 4 years ago in Vermont, the big push was around concussion awareness and CPR, first aid. I think mental health is as important, if not more important, than those 2 factors, for the simple reason, if you're not doing well and you are afraid to speak up, that's going to affect you more in your daily life than anything else. And I think being able to be an open space, an open community, and a loving, caring community is awesome. So to see 300 kids last winter wearing "You Are Loved" T-shirts in the crowd, and wearing them, not even thinking about it, is a message that we want the community to see, on a daily basis.
Oh yeah, it sounds like you've really created a great culture there, with kids, coaches, and fans. And going back to your first one, I love that. Best is the standard. 4 simple words, but that says it all. Great stuff. You mentioned COVID, and we've been asking our athletic directors as we are, pretty much 1 year into, having to deal with COVID. We've been asking ADs to kind of share, what's been happening over the past year. How have you and your school, and how has Vermont as a state responded to, return to play as well as return to school? Can you tell us what's going on?
Yeah, it's actually, I believe today for Vermont is the 1 year anniversary of starting fully remote last spring. But in either case, it's been a struggle at times. I'm the type of person personally that likes to have my ducks in a row, the A-type personality, everything organized for the season well in advance.
Yep.
And this has been hard. The unknowns, every time the phone rings, you're wondering, oh man, someone tests positive and now we got to quarantine, or there's who's so-and-so a close contact. When was the last time they tested? I think the state has done a nice job. It's been different, but I'm glad to see the kids are out there, and participating this fall. The season was delayed by about a month before we were able to start practicing. Football was 7v7 touch, so that was completely different. And that was a push by some of our coaches to get that 7v7 because they were talking about eliminating it altogether this fall. And we wanted to see something was better than nothing. And so 7v7 touch came across a lot of criticism early from a lot of people, and rightfully so. It's different. It's not the same. You saw some programs really suffered in terms of numbers because the kids didn't want to play. Some programs thrived because now there's no contact. And, at the end of the day, when you get the 2 teams on the field, they were competing. And, whether they're, getting in the trenches and hitting each other every play, or if they're just playing 7v7 touch, they're competing on a daily basis. And it allowed an opportunity for those kids, especially the seniors who lost a spring sport as a junior and then would lose a potential fall sport as a senior. That would be devastating. So it allowed them an opportunity to play. The other big modification we had this fall was that everyone had to wear a mask for every practice and every game. So athletes were in masks the entire time. The only exception were the cross-country runners. They could have their mask off while they were competing during a race. But no matter soccer, field hockey, football, golf, everyone was in masks this fall. And volleyball went from being an indoor sport this fall to being an outdoor sport, which had its own challenges in terms of weather. But our girls played a pseudo state championship game in the middle of October when the weather was about roughly 20 degrees. Very different than being indoors in a 75-degree gym, but they were able to play a pseudo championship game, on a turf field and get to compete at the highest level, which, ultimately is the ultimate goal.
I did see this year that there were a couple of states that mandated masks on athletes during games. And I guess I'm just curious. I know you're not a public health official, so you don't have these statistics at your fingertips, but what's your perception? Did you have cases where you had to quarantine or infections with the masks during competition? Was it better having them wear the masks?
We had zero issues with the masks this fall. We had no games canceled due to quarantining. We didn't have a single close contact in the fall. I mean, Vermont's numbers this fall were exceptional. If you were to go back and take a look, I think our high in the fall was maybe like 100 people, and that's a lot for us for positive cases, but it's very minimal compared to everybody else. We turn to the winter season, and we usually start at the end of November, the first Monday after Thanksgiving. Winter sports were were slated to begin practices. We did not start until basically the new year, until January. And then competition just started at the end of January. And that includes basketball, hockey, and both Nordic and alpine skiing. We had wrestling was canceled this winter, as well as indoor track. And the reason for indoor track being canceled is strictly the facilities we use are the local colleges, University of Vermont, Middlebury, Norwich, and they weren't allowing anyone in their facilities. So there was not a facility that could hold indoor track meet, as the high schools don't have those types of facilities up here. So that sport was canceled as well. Now, some schools provided opportunities for their kids. I know we had a local high school that had competitions within their own high school, doing different events at a local gym and so forth. So there are opportunities that were given for some of these athletes. I will say the winter has been harder than the spring or the fall. Sorry. We've had at one point, I think 8 out of the 13 Division II hockey programs were on pause, either because of close contact or because of positive cases. We've had 3 or 4 hockey programs have to cancel the remaining of their season right at the start of the playoffs because of positive cases. But I mean, everyone's doing their best, and I don't think a lot of those are transmission through sport. I think a lot of it is happening outside of the venue, the athletic venue, and then it gets brought into the athletic venue, if that makes sense. But they're also high school kids, and they want to live their lives, and I think that's a risk that you take.
Well, it's also winter and people are indoors, close contacts, as you said, outside of sports. So, well, continued success as you get into spring, whenever spring ends up arriving in Vermont. Okay. Dave, another question we've been asking the ADs revolves around the idea of social awareness, social justice, if you will. And my question is this: what are some things that you think athletic directors can do a better job of in this area of social awareness with their kids, their coaches, their communities? What can we do better?
I think we need to listen. I think we need to be able to listen and put our biases aside. I think everyone has implicit biases, whether we want to agree with it or not. And I think being able to listen to our athletes and listen to the community and do what's best for everyone as a whole and not just for individual people, I think is huge. I know in Vermont, we've started a social injustice committee, similar to what's already been started at the national level with the NIAAA. And we've had a lot of work in each educational institution around here in the state around the social injustices and racial injustices. That's actually our focus this year as an association. And it's our focus in a couple of weeks at our state conference, bringing in a couple of different speakers that can locally and nationally that can speak to this in terms of athletics and how we can help our athletes as a whole.
Oh, that's really good to hear. And again, I know a lot of states have been doing that. So, keep us updated on how that develops in your state. David, this has been great getting to know you, and I'm excited that you're a state coordinator. That means we'll be able to see each other in September at the State Coordinator Conference in Indianapolis.
Hopefully in person.
We're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. We've already established that you're an experienced, highly successful AD, but right now I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in David Marlow's athletic director toolbox?
3 items. Well, I think the first one would be patience, because I think that's extremely important in every aspect. Probably a charger for your phone, a portable charger for your phone, because I feel like my phone, and my wife can attest to this, my phone is going off all the time, and trying to keep people updated and respond to those on a daily basis. She always asks before we go to an event, yesterday we had an alpine ski race that we hosted for the state championships, and she asked, do you have your portable charger with you so your phone doesn't die? I think that's huge. You need a portable charger. It's more important than you realize. Big shoulders, I guess, would be the third one. Be willing to take on different adventures, and be willing to try new things and pile those kind of on as you continue. But also understand that anything you do someone's not going to be happy with something you do, and to not take it personal, and to always have the best of your athletes in mind in any decision making that you do.
I love that. Big shoulders. Absolutely. Okay. David Marlow, Vermont. Thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Yeah. Thanks, Jake, for having me.
If one of our listeners wants to reach out and pick your brain, what's the best way that they can get in touch with you?
I'm on Twitter at MMU Cougar Nation, or you can always email me, david.marlow at mmuusd.org.
All right. Thanks again for being on. For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of these interviews are being uploaded to the FIAAA Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. And until next time, we hope you come back for another episode of the Educational AD.